Hi there. When we do the wearables in the design class, we are going to have the students actually sew. So I wanted to make sure I experienced that. I hadn't sewed since I was in elementary school. So this is what the conductive thread looks like. So this is electricity can flow through this. It's very small. It's expensive. And then, here's some needles. I mean, one issue here that I think wasn't clear, and my wife was helping me, was supporting me on this, was making sure, like, do you thread the needle the same way that you thread a needle with thread? In other words, like kind of taking, say, a foot of the thread, folding it in half, and running them both through there so you can see that you're able to tie a knot. And it turns out that this does work the same way as with regular thread. I think the mistake that we made when we were first doing this is that we went from like all in one continuous loop. So let me back up a minute though and talk about what we're looking at here. So this I borrowed from Peg. This is just a 3-volt battery holder. This is I think it might be this lily pad thing. There's an LED actually on here to save you from having to mount an LED on top of this. It's listed in the product description as actually washable, so you really can make something that's wearable. I'm assuming you want to take the battery out if you're going to wash it, but that according to the directions, it should make it through a washer. But so this was glued on, and this was glued on, but there were no connections. And so this is where it seemed like it made sense to try just a small sewing project to try to get the hang of it and try to have some success, not do something too big. At any rate, the first time through though, I was nervous about um, having the wire in a loop in the needle, and so we just had a single wire that ended up like going through all these holes, like all around through, like both of these. And I think like what was happening there is analogous to what I did when I first tried to do the paper circuit, and I didn't leave a hole in the paper. I had to have like an actual break in the copper tape, and then the LED went between those. When I had the copper tape like this, and I tried to put the LED on top of that, it didn't light because the electricity is following the easiest path. And I mean, I think that's what happened here our first time around, in the sense that we just had one big loop with one single thread um, all the way around. And what we wanted to do, and we ended up looking at some diagrams from SparkFun for a different project, but that they did use a needle and thread just like you would with regular needle and thread, but we have like two separate strands here. We have one, like, this is a positive side. This is a single piece of thread. It goes over here and it connects to the positives on the other side. And then it's the same on this one, that the negatives go to the negatives on the other side. And then what is in between? So I have, this is hooked up to positive, this is hooked up to negative, and then what's in between, it's that LED in between. And so then this does work. So when I turn it on, I get this little white light there. Okay, so that's that. All right. And then a final just kind of silly thing. This is probably was the hardest thing because of the sewing, but as I get used to it now and I get more comfortable, all these things look different, right? I have the same power source, but really different conductive material, and my output device looks really different. But look, it's the same kind of ideas going on. The stuff starts to show up, and I start to make the same mistakes. And then you can develop some better strategies for debugging because you've seen them before. As long as you can make sense of the deep structure of what's going on in the different settings. So, okay, and then the last one was just this thing, and you know, maybe there's a more complicated way to do this. I mean, one of my inquiry questions that I wanted to ask was the difference between series and parallel. In this case, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Like the way, like these are just all individually wired up, like, you know, a positive and a negative for each light. So each light, you know, so the longer leg of the LED is a positive, it goes to a positive. The shorter leg, it goes to a negative. And I wasn't even bothered if there was something that was already there, and it seemed fine. So if I turn this on, I do have my LED. Now that's awfully bright in this. I don't know if you can see it better here. Not really. So when we see this thing in a class, though, you can see it lights up a face. It just has to do with the lighting here, I guess. Okay, but all right, that is it for my wearables, physical circuits, and